Now that we have the compose form, it's time to implement the send message feature. When somebody clicks the send button, they've typed out something, they've chosen the to subject body, they click send. There are a bunch of things that we'll have to do. We have to make sure that the message is associated with the folders for the right people. And also it has to go to the sent items of the person who is actually sending the message. So we have things in place to fetch all of this information. Now we're going to be using the same repositories to actually write information, okay? The repositories are already there. The challenge is in figuring out what are the individual writes that need to be performed, okay? So let's figure that out. I'm going to start by creating a new method here in the compose controller, which is going to handle this post request, okay? So I'm going to create this method. I'm going to call public. I will have to do, I'm thinking a model and view is probably a good option because now that's going to help me do a redirect. So I'm going to do a model and view as the return type. If you're not familiar, when you're writing controller methods, you can do one of two things, or actually multiple other things as well. But for this discussion, you can either do a string, in which case what you're returning is going to be interpreted as the name of the template, right? I returned compose-page. It interpreted as templates/compose-page.html. That's what it's going to look for. I can also return this object called model and view. What it's going to allow me to do is put the model object and the view into one thing and then return it. And then the Spring MVC framework is going to do the right thing, right? It's going to set the right model and then send the right view. One of the advantages of the model and view is that I can do redirects. I can say redirect to this thing, which is a recommended practice when you're doing a post. Because when you do a post and then you return a template from it, if the user presses refresh, it's going to trigger the post, which is why after you do a post, it's always a good practice to do a redirect so that even if the user were to refresh, what they're going to refresh is that redirected page and not the post request itself, okay? So that's the reason why I'm going to choose model and view, because this is going to be a post request, right? Somebody is going to fill out the email and press send, and that is a form that's going to make a post request, and that's how I'm going to get it to the controller, and from here on, I'm going to use a repository to save, all right? So I'm going to call this send email, okay? And this is going to have a bunch of similar things, like the authentication principle. And I don't need the model. I'm going to have the authentication principle here. And then I'm going to need the multi-valued map for the form itself, okay? So I'm going to stick that thing in here. When somebody sends a form, posts a form, you're going to get the form as a multi-valued map in the request body, right? So I'm going to say at request body, get the request body. What's going to be in the request body? These are key value pairs from the form. So the key value pairs is going to be in a multi-valued map. And everything is going to be string, right? The key is a string and the value is also going to be a string. Form, I'm going to call this form data. Okay, I'm going to get the contents of the form as a multi-valued map. And now I can use it to parse things from it. Okay, so for example, in the compose page, I will have to give a name for all these things because Thymeleaf is going to expect names. So just like you have ID, you need to have names. So I'm going to copy the IDs and give it the same names as the IDs. Okay, names to IDs. IDs subject. Name is going to be subject. ID body. Name is body. Okay, so I have set the name and the IDs for these guys. So when I get the multi-valued map, it is going to contain the key and value for these things. All right. So let's say I want to look up the subject, right? Name subject. What I need to do over here is I'm going to say form data get. I can either get the key, in which case it's going to get me like a collection, which is not what I want. I know that there is only one. So I'm going to call get first. Let's say subject. Okay. And this is going to get me the value that the user has typed in the subject input when they press submit. Okay. This is going to give me that value. Okay. So that's how I'm going to get the values from the form. I'm going to copy over the other stuff from the controller. I have it right here. I have the principal check, make sure that the user has logged in. If they haven't logged in, just kick them out. Okay. This is not going to work. Since I'm returning a model in view, I cannot return index anymore. I'm going to have to redirect to index, right? So I'm going to say new model and view. And I'm going to do a redirect to /, which is the home URL. Okay. If the user is not logged in, just redirect back to home. And that home, if it happens to be a user who has logged in, but there is some issue, it's going to go to the inbox page. But in this case, I'm guessing since the user is not logged in, it's going to take them to the login page, which is what we want, right? So throwing people to home is a good option in this case. Now I'm going to get all of these individual properties here from the form, and then I'm going to have to send the message with those properties. Okay, so I'm going to get this guy here. So what do we have? We have two IDs. I'll create a local variable. This is subject. Two IDs, subject, body, right? Two IDs, subject, and the body. Is that what we have here? Yeah, that's what we have here. I'm thinking if we need the from. The from is always going to be who is logged in, right? We have the principal.getAttribute of login. This is always going to be the from. We don't want to rely on the form for this, right? We know who's sending it because they're the person who's making this call. So I'm going to mark this as from. And this is going to be a string, I know. Okay, so I have from, I have two IDs, I have the subject, and I have the body. Now I have this thing here, which is splitting two IDs. Now I want to leverage that and not have to do it multiple times. So I'm going to refactor extract to a method. I'm going to call this split two IDs. I'm just going to call it split IDs. Okay. Okay. Now I have split IDs method here. I'm going to use this for splitting the IDs here as well. Okay. I'm going to have to do a null check here because, this could be called multiple places. So what I'm going to do is, let's see. I'm going to return an empty list. Okay, that is fine. So that way I don't have to, it's going to be string. That way I don't have to deal with this mess here. So I can just call this and add it to the attribute. If nothing is there, nothing is going to show up, right? I don't need to do a null check anymore. Sending nulls is a problem because you're going to have to do null checks everywhere. So this kind of makes it simple, right? I don't have to check anymore. If the 2ID is empty, then it just returns an empty string. So when it is parsing, it is going to just be empty, right? Okay. Like when it's joining over here, it's just going to be nothing, no commas there because there's no element. Okay, so I have split IDs with the null check. So I don't have to do a null check here as well. I'm going to do split IDs of form.get first of two IDs. And this is going to be list of string. Okay. I'll have the parameters that are necessary. Now I need to send out the email. And what do I have to do for this? Quite a few things, actually. First, I need to do a new email entry, right? The email repository has the mechanism to create a new email. right? Which is like the main email. Let me show you. To go to email, you see this? We need one of those guys, right? This is the actual messages by ID. So we need to create one message with that ID. And then that message entry needs to show up in a bunch of different people's inboxes, right? So first is the two addresses, right? Whatever are the two IDs for each of those users, I'm going to have to associate this message in their email list item, right? I need to create a new email list item for each of the recipients and then put that email in their inbox. It's the first thing. That's the second thing. The third thing is I need to create one more email list item where I need to put the same email in the sent items of the person who is sending this, right? The sender needs to have this in the sent items. Okay, you have to do all those things. So what I'm going to do is probably create a separate service. So I'm not doing this in the controller because I'm going to be calling all the repositories. Sorry, I'm going to be calling the email repository, the email list item repository. And then once we get the counters, I'm going to be calling that repository as well. So there's a lot of stuff here. So what I'm going to do is create a new email service. And I'm going to put this in the email package, which makes sense. This is called email service. And this is going to be a Spring service. Okay, the Spring stereotype of service. So this can be a singleton service which gets injected into the controller, which needs to send the email, right? So I'm going to have a method here, public void send email. Okay, the job of this method is going to be to send that message, to send that, whoever is sending the email, they're going to make this call. Like when somebody presses send, there's going to be one call to this method, and that this method is going to do all the right things, right? It's completely delegating that responsibility over here. So what are the inputs that this needs? This needs the string from, right? Who's sending this message? And then a list of string of 2. Okay. And then what else do I need? I need this string subject, string body. This should suffice, right? This is all we need. From, to, who all are the two, the subject, and the body. Okay, so this is going to do all the things necessary for it. So what are the things it needs to do? First, it needs to create that message, okay? So that is in the email repository. Autowire. Email repository. And here it is going to create a new email. And set all the values. Email.set 2 is going to be 2. Email.set from is going to be from. Email.set subject is subject. Email.set body is body. Email.set ID is going to be a new UUID. Okay, UUIDs dot the time-based ID. Okay, so I'm creating a new UUID for when this email is created. And now what I need to do is basically do email repository dot save of email. And now with this, I have created a new email and I have persisted it. So this is one of the several things that needs to be done. Now that this is done, for each recipient, for each person in the 2, I need to create a new email listing entry in the inbox for that recipient. Okay, so I'm going to have to go here like for 2 dot for each 2 ID. I'm going to have to create a new email list item is what it's called. Email list item. Email list item. Email list item. But before that, I need the key email list item key equals new email list item key.set ID is going to be the same ID as the message. I cannot create a new time UID now because this will be different, right? Every time I create a UID, it'll be different because it's separated in time, the single thread. So I'm going to get this ID, email.getID. Okay. Why is this complaining? Set ID of string. Haven't made this a string. I think this is the user ID. Okay. I need to set this as this is not going to be from. This is the user ID of the person whose folder you're adding this entry to. Okay. So when you're sending a message to a bunch of people and putting this entry to their inboxes, the entry is owned by them. So this has to be that person. Okay. So this has to be to ID. Okay. This email entry belongs to them. So it has to be the to ID there. All right. Key.set is going to be inbox because it has to go to that person's inbox. Key.set time UID is going to be email.getID. Okay. I'm going to set that same time UID so that it kind of correlates. Okay. Now email list item set key is going to be the key. Item.set to is going to be to. The list of twos it's not just one person. What needs to show there is like who all received that email. Okay. Item.set subject should be the subject. What else do we have? Item.set unread is probably true because we are putting it to their inbox. They haven't read it. Yeah, it has to be true, right? You're posting it to the inbox until the time they read it. It has to be true. Which reminds me, when somebody views a message, it has to mark unread as false, which we haven't done. So we're going to have to do that. Okay, so we have this. Now I need to get the repository and save this. Okay, email. What's it called? Email list item repository. .save of the item. Okay. Now we have saved this email to every member of that tool, like every recipient of that message. Now that this is done, I'm going to have to save this to the sender's sent items folder, right? It has to go to their sent items. So I'm going to do kind of the same thing. It's a bit of a copy paste, but I'm going to do this here. Or can I extract this into a method? Might be able to extract this into a private method so that I don't repeat this stuff. Refactor, extract to method. What am I calling this? Create email list item. Okay, so it's going to get that email list item for this. Now this is I'm not going to call this to ID. I'm going to call this the item owner. Okay, because it's really the owner of the item. To ID can be a little bit misleading. Like who owns this email list item, right? Let's see if this works now. So what do I need to do? For the sender, I'm going to have to create email list item where the to is the to, right? Subject is the subject, email is the email, and then the item owner is going to be the from. Okay. And I also need to send the folder because the folder is not always inbox. So I'm going to add a folder here. And then over here, I'm going to create another string folder. And that's what I'm going to pass you. Okay. So here I'm sending inbox. And here I'm going to send sent items. Okay. Sent items entry is going to be this guy. And then I'm going to do the save for the sent items entry as well. Okay. This is going to take care of all of the things that we need. Okay. It is going to it's going to create the message. It is going to add entries to all the recipients in their inboxes. It is going to add one item to the sent items for the person who's sending it. And then it's going to save all of them. Okay. So now we have this method called send email. I can use this in my compose controller when somebody has submitted something. Okay. So I'm going to get all these things here. And first let me auto-wire the email service. Okay, I have the email service. I'm going to call the method on this thing. Get all these individual elements. Email service dot send email. From is from, to is to, subject is subject, body is body. Cool. This is going to be 2 IDs. Okay. All right. So it's going to go ahead and send this email. And after this is done, I need to redirect to what does it make sense to redirect to? Maybe to the inbox page, because they've finished sending it. And now we have to say like, okay, you're done. Go to the inbox. So again, this is going to be the same thing here. I'm going to take them to the home page. But now, since this is happening only when the user has authenticated, we know that the home page is going to be the inbox page and not the login page, right? So that's going to work fine, I think. One last thing I'm going to do is hook in this. Of course, I need to put the annotation here because it's not getting called at all. Post mapping. And this is /send email. I'm creating a URL called send email. And when somebody makes a post to that, it's going to go there. Okay. Now I need to wire this thing in to my compose page here. So we have a form which doesn't do anything. It doesn't have any place to submit to. I'm going to have to fix that. I use the th::attr, which allows me to specify the action, which is where I want this to be sent to. So I'm going to say action equals, and then the link, which is send email. Okay. So you must be familiar with the @ link here, right? You see this @ and curly is a way for you to specify a link in Thymeleaf. So I'm going to say action is send email. And I'm also going to have to specify the method as post because we need this to be a post method. We have done the post mapping over here, right? So it better be a post method. So that's what I'm going to do over here. One other thing that I need to do is account for CSRF, all right? Spring Security. Since we're using Spring Security, it comes with cross-site request forgery protection enabled. Okay, if you go to we didn't actually do this. There is a security adapter here, which kind of came with the repository. So you see here, there is cross-site request forgery enabled, right? Protection is enabled. So if you were to just send this form, it's not going to take it. You're going to have to add the cross-site request forgery tokens over here as a part of the form. So it becomes a part of that payload and gets sent over. And then the Spring MVC interceptors is going to check it and make sure, okay, this is a valid token and it's going to send it. Okay. It's just something that you need to add as a part of form submissions. When there is a post request, you have to make sure you add this so that your server is secure and your application and the framework knows that this request is coming from a legitimate source, who's the user who you served this form to and not somebody else who's hacking the site. Okay. So I'm going to add this token over here. which is what tells Spring Security that this is from a reliable source. Okay, so I'm going to have an input with type equals hidden because we don't want this to be displayed. And then this is th:\name and th:\value. Okay, th:\name equals something, th:\value equals something. Okay, so this is what we need. What are these things? What we need here is to specify a special token called _CSRF dot. Okay, this kind of comes built in, right? When you have Spring Security, it is going to make this available in your kind of like the model, because this is available in the namespace when you're rendering Thymeleaf. So it is going to be there. You need to pass this along, all right? So similarly, there is _CSRF dot value, which is the value of this token. So it's going to tell you what the parameter name is. It's going to tell you what the value is, and it's made it available. Now, when you're rendering the HTML, you will have to add this as an input. Okay. And only you can do this because this is on the server side, right? So this is being set on the server side. This HTML is being rendered on the server side. So when this input is available, it's only a server side component which could have possibly put that in the HTML. You can't write some rogue JavaScript and figure that out because JavaScript resides only on the client side, right? This HTML parsing and rendering and templating is happening on the server side. So that's how Spring Security, when it finds this, can rest assured that this is a valid source, right? So since this is input and this is hidden, it's not going to show up when the user loads the page. Okay, so I'm going to click on compose message. Okay, so I'm going to have to wait for this to refresh. Log in. There seems to be an error. CSRF token. Oh, this is token, not value. This is CSRF dot token is the name of the property that you need to pull up. Okay, so I'm guessing there is an input. There is a hidden input here which we don't know about. I'm going to create a message. Hello world. And then send this, submit this. It is going to go back to the inbox, but then looks like it didn't quite, well, here it is. So hello world has shown up over here in the sent items. If I go to my inbox, here it is, but it's showing at the end. Why is that? Maybe because I haven't sorted this. Let's take a look at our sorting criteria for the email list item. Well, there's going to be over here. Yeah, I haven't sorted it at all. So this is a clustering column, and my intention originally was to sort based on in reverse chronological order, right? So I can set the ordering here descending, okay? It is going to sort in descending order. Now let's try this. This time, when I send a message, it is going to go like I'm sending a message to myself. So it's going to come to my inbox and it's going to show up at the top. And then it is also going to have an entry in the sent items. Okay. We'll wait for this to reload and compose a message. Again, to myself. Subject to the world again. And the body is hello. I'm going to submit. And here you see, I have my message that was sent over here with me as the two. And if I go to my sent items, there is this message as well. Okay. So yeah, so we have send message functionality, which is not bad. We have to add the counters as well, which is one part which we're missing. Right? You see here when something gets added, first of all, we're not tracking the read status, right? We're not saying, okay, when I click on something and open it, now this message is read, and now I have to mark it as is read as true, right? Or is unread as false, whatever that is. And secondly, when a message comes in, I'm going to have to increment the counters. When somebody reads a message, I'm going to have to decrement the counters. So there are a bunch of things that we have to do. So let's start working on those in the next video.